Okay, we're live. Well, we're live. I'm still making my more detailed to-do list for the stream. So pardon me while I still kind of write my little to-do list. But um, today there are three different things that we can focus the stream on. The first is just general maintenance, as per usual, just generally going through the open source design GitHub and seeing whether there's anything new to update or new issues to work on. Which I don't think there's not been a lot of activity lately, although I did do some maintaining last week after last week's stream. So I did some maintaining off stream, which is, it's going to happen. And then we've got some more prep for an open source design workshop at COSCUP conference, which is happening very soon in Taiwan. And we'll kind of work through that and talk a little bit about that. So just trying to make sure that folks that I might not want to have like their names on stream get their don't necessarily thanks. It's important. So yeah, we're gonna go over some changes to that. These and I'll kind of talk through some of the issues that I'm finding recently. Let's just double check. Oh, they probably should not be the same. URL trackers. We can share the screen while we're bumbling through some of this stuff though. So I'm just resolving some comments from the workshop board for COSCUP, just really quickly, because I've noticed that these two, when I fixed an issue, or when I fixed the links, I accidentally linked the same one twice. So we've got the URL trackers, which is this one right here, which is correct, but then we've also got media shared directly or indirectly. So what we want to do is find one where media is referenced. 21 open. Sorry, I'm laughing because somebody has logged a bug, which is like this what, 2 weeks ago, this app is taking forever to do anything. I wonder, like, I think these are pretty common, like, open source bugs that end up being raised by people, right? In the sense that it's not necessarily actually a bug. Specifically, it's more of a user complaint, like this open source isn't doing what I want it to do in the manner of which I want it to do. And I guess it just goes to show you, like, you can have all of the guidance in the world to, like, this is how you would raise a bug, and this is what defines a bug, versus like this is what defines like a user complaint. But the thing is, if you've got an open repository that is like fully open source, is people are still going to do this. It's I'm curious to read these comments, which it would be interesting. But the reason that we're on this repo is because we're working on some issues for the design workshop for the privacy security messaging tool called Session, which I believe is a fork of the Signal open source, but they've done a number of different things to it. So if you're curious about that tool, it's probably best to check out like Session app as far as like the technical aspects. Media saved, session notification of media saved by the receiver in one-to-one chats. So this is kind of this issue connected to this issue, notifying users indirectly from a chat session. Yes, so this is not one that I had linked before, but is a useful issue to reference here. But I'm pretty certain there was another issue that described this. Oh, this one. Yeah, here. Give notification when media is shared from a chat, similar to when a screenshot is taken. Yes. So we'll drop this one here, and we'll put an and sign there, and then we'll respond. Good catch. Fixed now. The tricky thing being is that when I run a workshop at any kind of open source conference, or like any conference really, I like to make sure that there are like physical printed handouts, because not everyone is going to bring a laptop to a workshop, and not everybody should be required to bring a laptop to a workshop. People might think that's a bit strange. If you're going to an open source software workshop, why wouldn't you bring like a laptop? You know, the more workshops you do at the more places that you kind of go to, the more you realize not everyone has access to a laptop. And you know, it's always good to make alternative ways for people to contribute to open source, and especially when people are doing design related contributions to open source, especially like in a workshop setting, or in a like setting where you're collaborating with other designers like synchronously, whether it's like in person or like online. Like a lot of work kind of gets done through the discussion and on like a single piece of paper / like on single like online canvas. So it's always good to offer alternatives, especially like not everyone wants to crowd around one screen in a workshop. Okay, so I wanted to resolve those things really quickly, and then we'll go on to some of the maintenance stuff. We'll take a look what's been happening in the open source design repo recently. Oh, and I think the other thing that I didn't get to do on stream last week was, if I just put a browser window on my other screen here and find it in my drive. This is something that I did off stream as well, which is I updated some of these the spreadsheet which is tracking the open source design jobs board, and so I think there's still a little bit of like update that I actually need to do to this spreadsheet, but I don't think there's been any jobs posted between last week and this week, but there has been a couple of jobs that have ended up being closed. The Figma plugin job got closed. This is also using the incorrect purple on this spreadsheet, so let's make it a little bit darker. This one got closed. Yes, person indicated on the forum post that many designers applied and submitted intentions for being part of the team. It kind of actually sounded a little bit like they had like, I don't really want to, I don't know if this is the right way to say this, but it sounds like they had too many submissions, or like, oh, enough submissions that they kind of had a tricky time of it. Okay, there we go. We may have just messed up the spreadsheet a little bit, but that's okay, by adding wrapping, but that's okay. It's okay. Sometimes we try and reformat a spreadsheet, and sometimes it goes well and sometimes it doesn't go well. Cool. So we've given some, oh, where are we? We're in 2024. Yeah. This one. Okay. Yeah. I think what's happening is, yeah, I think we need to make some of these columns that have a lot of links, we need to make them a little bit wider, because yeah, it's gonna be tricky. There we go. I think the contributions, yes, contacted, why is it a link? Why is it underlined and gosh, sometimes you don't have the energy for why is text being strangely formatted, and sometimes you don't want to try and find the oh gosh, okay, it's just, it wants to put an underline on the y, that's fine. Responded within 2 weeks, yes. Closed the discourse thread. I'm not sure if I closed the discourse thread actually, so we'll check. But there's no new pull requests to merge, no new jobs, so we can for sure close the jobs repo. But let's open up the website just so that we can grab some links for the jobs if we want to. And let's see what's been. So there's no pull requests on the regular repo. Not a lot has happened. I opened this issue last week, and I had a couple of replies. We only want to check that. Be sure that. Yeah. We want to be sure that. Edit this. We want to. We want to be sure that you check that you are following open source principles. Edited the main issue text to change this worded to change to this wording. Okay, thank you. We might actually try and make a contribution and do this. Let's just assign myself for now, because I think this would really help, adding a new form field for people to paste their license, like information for their life. It certainly would make my life easier when I'm trying to review pull requests for jobs. Yeah. Cool. So let's carry on. Let's make sure that all the jobs that need to be here are here. So this is the most recent one. This is the same one, most recent. So the thing that we wanted to check on was the forum post and see whether the forum post for the Figma job and also the Ura job, and probably also this one, the self-improvement app, are all like closed. This is often the thing that I forget to do when I'm doing my sort of regular maintaining process. Hey CB, I hope it's going okay. I had all the energy in the world for streaming like yesterday and then this morning, and then like just like maybe an hour before stream I was just like, oh no, I don't know whether I've got the energy, so I'm feeling incredibly low energy today, which is sad, but hey, sometimes we do low energy streams. Specifically more community oriented. The closest I've contributed to the project where I attempt to streamline the volunteer process. That's cool. I contributed as project and design lead. If you're curious, here's the documentation system. I am curious, and the GitHub. I am incredibly curious. Since one of the things that we might look at today is onboarding designers specifically into an open source software project, and this is kind of, I suppose, what we a little bit like onboarding, the volunteer process. Oh, what have I done? Oh, good grief! Discourse. No. Okay. So have we got two of the discourses open by accident? Yeah, we do. Okay, but we're okay. We're good. We can close one and open one up again. Gosh, we've had loads of new people. Oh dear, people are not following the new rules. But this person seems fine. This person seems like the person that submitted the job post. But like we implemented a new rule on when people are replying to a jobs post to make contributions, and that at least in somewhere in your message you have to actually mention the project name, so that we know that you're so we know that one, you've read the job post and you know like who you're going to be contributing to, and two, so that we are limiting the amount of copy paste that can happen. Please prove you are not a bot. Yes, especially since look, like these people are using the same like formatting, right? Like I'm sure they're lovely people, and I hope they're making fantastic contributions. But like, hi, this is exactly the same. Hang on a minute, this is exactly the same wording, but with obviously different links. Well, this person has said my portfolio can be found at, and this person has said my LinkedIn profile is, I'm available for further. This is a little bit better, like in the sense that here's my email, here's my LinkedIn, here's my most recent project. Okay, Zahara. Okay. Okay. I'm just going to take a quick screenshot of this. I'm putting my head in my hands. Because I think this is probably one of the hardest things I've like come up, or the things that maybe I find the most difficult as like a maintainer. I mean, obviously I can't write code, which is hard for me as a maintainer to write crappy code, but as in my code is often relatively crappy. But how do you even approach the maintainer issue of, is this just a coincidence these two people are using the same? And also we've implemented something new as well, that people have to joined July 5th. You have to post in the introductions. Why actually can't I go on their profile? No, this is the first time that they've posted. This is the first time that they've posted. 5 days ago, 4 days ago. Okay, yeah, because our new rules are for jobs postings. I might need to make a post on the jobs section here or link the post because I think it's in the meta. Social media links, posting topics. Where did I even put it? Oh, good grief. Where did I put it? I put it somewhere. Maybe I put it in the design lounge. I can't quite remember where I put it now. Oh my gosh. Okay, I will find it. I need to find it because I need to link it. Let me just look and see whether it's in any of the most recent things here. Surely I would not have put it in the monthly design call. No, I clearly did not. Good. That's good. At the very least, that's good. But Errol clearly hasn't put it in a place that is like easy to find. Oh yeah, that would be lovely. That would be lovely if you've got examples on how you've handled this. Because I'm starting to get like I have a pretty good amount of patience for stuff like this, but even I have like limitations. I put it somewhere. I put the rule somewhere. Gosh. Maybe it's like about the category. Nope, it's not. Right, give me 2 seconds. I'm going to take the screen share off because I had a chat thread going about it. Let's see where that chat thread is. And there's another task that I think I'm gonna do. Gosh, there's actually so many maintenance tasks that I need to do from a very privacy perspective. Like I can't do it on stream. Like I can't share my screen as I do them because it's mostly messaging people. There is the message that I'm trying to find. Okay. Oh, there we go. Thank you. Thank gosh. Jan is organized. But then again, that's why you have multiple maintainers, so that you don't have to hold all of the lines all at once. Oh dear. Oh, CB. Okay, so guidelines on posting and responding to jobs. Some rules. Yeah, there we go. Yep. Okay. So where is this on the generally, like, on the forum? Jobs posting. So it must be somewhere in this thread somewhere. Somewhere in this thread, somewhere. But it's supposed to be pinned, right? That's the thing I sometimes don't get about discourse. It's sometimes I don't understand jobs postings. It's in jobs postings. So, but it's not like sticky, you know? But it makes me want to, like, open up a, like, completely incognito. Oh, but I'll have to log in to see it. So, yeah, okay, so why don't I see it at the top of mine? Is it because I'm an admin? Is it because it's locked? I mean, it is pinned. Responding. Guidelines on posting and responding to jobs. Unpinned. No, I want to keep it pinned. Open topic, archive topic, and list topic. Yeah, it should be fine, like, where it is, but I guess I think maybe one of the things that could make this better. So I suppose from what we know about open source design and the designers that respond to things, is they don't necessarily have a they don't, like, see the jobs post from the forum. They will see the jobs post from here. So I think we might actually need a new section on the jobs page, which reminds people that they need to check our rules. And also, I guess, when this template is generated, I wonder if we can place, like, the check rules, because if the thread hasn't, let's just open up a couple. If the thread hasn't been opened, then this will be kind of like start a conversation. But I think the very like minimum thing that I can do, I don't need that anymore because I did this. The minimum thing that I can do is add a issue, jobs page, and this is going to be an improvement, a pretty massive improvement though. Jobs, and good first issue. Maybe CSS, I don't know. Jobs page. Add the rules, add the link to the discourse forum post. We've had a higher rate of what seem to be copy paste responses to jobs posts this year. One way we are limiting that is introducing a rule that if your post, where is the expected of copy pasting responses, don't use generic code. I'm going to propose another sort of change here. A suggestion to avoid copy paste suspicion is to reference the name of the open source software project that posted the job in your forum response. There we go. I spelled response wrong. There we go. Save edit. I'm just going to come off the big cam again so that I can do some messaging. I added a new piece of text. I think this will help avoid bot-like posts too. Cool. Okay. So we want to introducing a rule that if you're posting a reply in our forum to a job opening from our jobs board, that you avoid copy paste like responses, and you will get 3 warnings before being banned. You can find info here. I think that another location to surface this information is the jobs page itself. Did you email this person? Hi there. Did you email the person who opened the job post? I think we see this all the time where people, so there's such a sort of complicated and like a complicated problem with our jobs board, in that it's great that it automatically creates a forum post for the job post, but then there's like this kind of disconnect between like the job posting itself proper and the conversation that can happen. So yeah, let's okay, cool. So we added that. The other thing that I need to do from a maintenance perspective, because I'm pretty sure I have updated all of these. Oh, I wanted to close some forum posts. Look at how I get distracted by the multiple things that a maintainer must do. So this one needs to be closed. Because this one has finished. So Figma plugin, the URA one also needs to be closed. So let's do a little, yep. This one I think is the URA one. See, this is the tricky thing, is like, yeah, there's a forum thread here. And then people are having like conversations here, which is good, but I'm absolutely certain the folks at URA don't necessarily, not that they don't want to reply to these, but I don't think they have time to reply to them. But it's still a good thing that this exists, this conversation. It's a good record, like if they wanted to go back and have a look. So that's the URA one closed. This is the thing that I'm worst at when I'm doing my maintenance self-improvement app, which is the closing of forum threads, because it's actually quite hard to sometimes find them. Especially if they've been closed, like the it's unlisted, right? So as well, so close it. We also want to unlist things, because what we don't want are people. Do we want to unlist them? I guess they're not active, so yeah, it makes sense. Let's also unlist the topic then, and unlist the topic here. It does make sense to unlist them. I guess it then means that you can access them, those threads again, if you're an admin. But I suppose like the tricky thing there is that the person that submitted the job won't necessarily be able to go back into the conversational thread and see what happened. I'm pretty sure that one's at the beginning of the year. That one should have been closed there. Yeah, because it had a whole deadline, but I didn't close it. Clearly I did not close it. So this is really funny. I submitted this job for open source design. So when I was helping out organizing FOSDEM for this year, at the beginning of this year, I was like trying to organize like some people to design some posters, essentially, to put up at our stand at FOSDEM. And I gave like this kind of design brief for it. And then, you know, I did the same thing that a lot of people do. This is the same person. That a lot of, I'm going to delete the duplicate. Yeah, please delete it. Yeah, okay, cool. But even I forget to reply to people on the forum threads, right? So, and I know the process like inside out, but nobody emailed me. So like every jobs post, we ask for like a contact email so that people can directly contact you, because we know that not everyone's going to be living in the forum and checking on things. So this one can be closed now, I think. Is it actually closed on the repository? Let's check. If it's not, then we will close it, because we'll start a new one if we want to create more new posters. Searching, yeah, still searching. So this one can be actually closed. Okay. And then we'll change the color of this here. So all of these other ones, so obviously the ones that just got opened here, the antenna pod, tab wrangler, this one, hello HTTP. We'll probably go back as far as like March, but like these 1, 2, 3, 4, I'll probably like message these 4 people and say, hey, do you want to actually keep these open or do you want them closed? Because we don't know. Ask unknown, or we can just keep it as unknown. We know that Ura got and they contacted, they responded. We closed the discourse, yes, we did, and then we also closed this one, and yes, because it was me. It was me. I was the one that did the submission. Did we send the follow-up email? Did they leave a nice comment? No, not yet. So for this one, self-improvement app, yes, we closed. Contacted, I don't think, I don't know if we did, but we definitely closed the discourse. But yeah, there's a number of there's these 4 that we that I should email, but there's certainly like old jobs like this, all of these old jobs that I'm pretty sure some of them still have open forum threads. That should be like one of my streaming maintenance tasks, is the laborious and like boring job of actually just combing through this spreadsheet and all the forum posts and closing out the forum posts that are no longer like active, that are jobs that are closed, that I know that are closed. But anyway, the other thing that I was going to do is I was going to edit this post, because we know that one person is now an alumni. We know that Charlie is an alumni, so we'll take Charlie out of this list and we'll drop Charlie into this list. Thank you so much for your time and attention on the core team, Charlie. We really appreciate the time that you spent with us. I don't think I really got to meet you, but I appreciate everybody that has done dedicated time to open source design. Anyway, I'm just adding people's last name spelling to my dictionary so that I don't incorrectly name them, but I'm going to save that edit. And then I'm just going to do a little reply. I added Charlie. Inkabel. That's a maintenance task that I need to do, is actually messaging a lot of these people. I'm pretty sure Victory has a Brownie, there she is. I knew she had a forum thing, so I don't know. I mean, we're very happy to have her Twitter profile linked, but let's also like follow proper like structure and actually spell her name correctly, but add her name there. Also added Victory Brown's forum username to her listing, as it was not there. Cool. Okay, so maintenance tasks over, but we'll take a look at some of these documents that people created for designers. What are we looking at? We're looking at almost an hour of this stream, so we've almost got like a half an hour left, and we'll maybe do this task of the onboarding stuff by reading some of these. We'll keep this up. We'll do these. We'll contact these people off stream, and then the only other thing that I was thinking about trying to do on stream was writing up some of these documentation things for here. I believe Abhishek kindly made a contribution, which is lovely. Which one did? Which document did? How to install this one? Was it this one? Last week, 3 hours ago, updated README. Okay, so Abhishek updated the README. I updated that one. So I think it was just the README, was it? Workshop structure. No, he made another contribution. It's somewhere in here. Maybe it's in this one. Adding images. Oh gosh, we don't need that. Delete file. We don't need the DS store. Commit directly. So we've got some. Yeah, we've got blurry images going on, which kind of sucks, but okay. So this one's better. Actually, do you know what? We'll delete the other one that's blurry, but we might create a folder for each project and do something better. But I'm absolutely certain Abhishek wrote some documentation for one of the tools. About the OSS tools? Nope, wasn't that one. I didn't overwrite it, did I? Because if I did, I feel really terrible. Commits. Let's look at the commits. Okay, no, it was the README. Phew! It was the README that he updated. Let's take a look. Perfect, perfect. Okay, yeah. Groovy, groovy. I was really worried that I'd overwritten some of the changes then. I'm just going to take a little bathroom break and I'll be right back. And okay, back. Right, so let's take a look at some of these documentations that this person made. Onboarding checklist. We love an onboarding checklist. Love that. What's the labeling system? Oh, I guess, you know, not everyone has time to build out a a labeling system, like a comprehensive one, but they do have a project board. So let's see. Well, it's just to-dos. This is nice. We love an onboarding checklist. From a open source software project perspective, giving guidance is very useful. giving any guidance, any guidance is very useful. For example, see here how Voma have created a onboarding checklist for contributors. The other thing that I would link, which I link quite a lot, I end up linking this loads if I go onto my YouTube channel. One of the things that I did way back when, oh, it's not on my channel, hang on. My playlists, my talks, and then I believe it's, yes, hosted. Oh, it is on my channel somewhere. But I got this, I made this when we were on one of the Sustain Open Source Software calls. Oh, look how different my background is now compared to when I was. It's quite funny looking at my background then, my background now with like many more images on the wall. Turns out I fill every available space with images. But I did this video for how this onboarding like tutorial was recorded by Errol of the Open Food Network's past like designer contributor onboarding journey, like, well, it's not really a journey, it's a pathway. But yeah, in that talk I go through all the different things that I put in place in order to like onboard designers into the Open Food Network. I also talked a little bit about like the amazing structure that the Mutual Aid Resilience app used within their Figma file, which was actually doing onboarding for the designers within the Figma file. So you can kind of see here they have like a section which is onboarding and introduction. So when you want to join the open, the comparison is really funny, isn't it? But when you want to join the open source project, one of the first things that you do is just you read through the Figma file information, and it makes sense because that's kind of where designers' comfort level is, not necessarily like documentation sites like this or the GitHub places, essentially. So they really were like, well, if we want more designers to contribute, we need to put the information where the designers are going to spend the most time. And the place where the designers would be spending the most time on, if they're doing design, like if they're working in design software as part of their contributions, is going to be inside the design software. So why not put the documentation there? Which is a huge, big brain, massive, huge brain activity from Courtney and the other folks over this app. I think this app got like that version of sunsetted where it didn't get sunsetted, but it got like retired essentially. I don't think anybody's making active contributions or actively maintaining it at the moment. But anyway, that's a good thing to do. For understanding that if you want design contributions to flourish, that designers are likely not going to be spending their like day-to-day activity in developer tools, e.g.git, GitHub, and documentation like sites. The space where they are more likely to spend their time is design software. And like depending on what kind of design contributions they are making, this software could look vastly different. Some examples include, adding documentation into Figma/Penpot files, or any design like UI, like graphics. My spelling is terrible, software. And if we're talking, if we are more in the design research space, we're likely to be using tools like possibly Notion, document. What are they called? Like word document processing tools. So maybe like, I don't know, CryptPad, Libre, Office, like Google Docs, etc. So basically, if you're doing any kind of design, or and possibly also like synthesis design tools, like Miro synthesis design tools, which typically are like virtual whiteboards, like Mural. I think Mural actually stopped. Mural virtual whiteboard. I think they stopped. Yeah, I think Mural is no longer a thing, right? I think, did they? No, Mural's still a thing. Okay. For some reason I thought they closed business. I know Google Jamboard is almost closing business. And then you could like use an open source alternative like Excalidraw. So that's where you want to create the things. But if I remember correctly, it's not really onboarding designers into an open source project from a project perspective has been talked about a fair bit. Onboarding yourself into an open source software project yourself as a designer into an open source project is a slightly more nuanced problem, which is an interesting problem to have. It's a good problem to have. Like you've found an open source project you want to contribute to. How do you get in it? What heading did I use here? Heading 2. Should probably use heading 1. Sometimes heading 1 is too big. Bold. Heading 1. Update. And then you can also be heading 1. Groovy. Oh yeah. It's fine. That'll do. So this is a slight. I don't think there are as many like pieces of documentation around this kind of issue. We'll talk about it in a moment. We'll maybe spend the rest of the stream kind of talking about it and writing about it a little bit. But let's just take a look over the onboarding checklist. Ooh, yeah, for design they've got a specific section. Look, they've got a Miro and a Figma. Nice. Interesting. Let's have a look at the Figma. Join our Figma team. That doesn't, I mean, some more documentation what the Figma is used for would be good. But it exists. That's the main thing. It's like, you know, I can sit here and critique and sort of say it'd be good to have this or it'd be good to have this. But yeah, oh, I mean, it looks like if I don't, how do I join your team? It just takes me to my Figma homepage. I guess I need to submit a bug. But yeah, it would have been good to have a little bit of information about like what Figma is used for, just in this kind of section of the documentation, as well as like in the Figma file. This is cool. Prototypes and workflows. Nice. So this is a really interesting and comprehensive like design document, which is pretty cool. It's good example. I feel like there's another example that I can give from my previous stuff that I won't be able to find the link for, but I'll write it here and then I'll find the link off stream, which is I'd love to find the link on stream, so let's just do the whole like complicated thing of bringing this over to my other screen and trying to find it. So if I remember correctly, it's some of the old Ushihide documentation, but Ushihide retired a lot of old documentation recently, but in very kindly still kept an archived version of the documentation. I'm just going to come off of screen share for a second and open up my Slack to find the link to this, because I'm concerned. I do want to find it. Oh, that looks good. I'll respond to that. I thought I'd seen this. This is the other thing that Abhishek did for the documentation. It looks good. I'll reply in the GitHub though, because we should try and bias towards GitHub. Oh, I'm not sharing my screen, so that'll be really confusing. Yay, I found it. Amazing. I should make sure that I bookmark this, otherwise things are going to be bad one day when I try and find it again. Bookmark. Have I think I maybe made let's just add it to my bookmarks bar for now. I think I maybe did a download of this, but like the problem is that I made like several different pages, right? And I would want to like export all of these pages essentially, but this was the whole design overview thing. Some documentation was created by Errol for designers interested in contributing to Ushahidi here. These efforts were intended to like open up the processes that were being used internally that were like non-sensitive in nature. Like knowing how an open source software project does its user testing is unlikely to raise security concerns. So it's likely that you can open source the processes of like how somebody is doing like design within the tool. I suppose like some complexity comes in when you say have well, I don't even think design introduces this complexity, but say you know you have a series of new features that are intending to be developed or currently being developed in the open source project, and before coding starts you have designers building like UI interfaces and interactions within a design tool that could be open. So theoretically you could have somebody malicious looking to understand how a feature might end up being a vulnerability from viewing a design file, and then maybe even manipulating that file through a contribution. But then again, you know, that's a deeply malicious thing for somebody to do. Like it's quite an involved series of like actions, but I'm sure some red team kind of people would go that far. And then yeah, you could introduce a vulnerability by having design, like open design files in some way there. But then usually there's an open issue that describes those features. If it's an open source tool that describes like, we want to build these new features. But I suppose like those issues are somewhat, often they're protected by their abstract definition or abstract nature. So I suppose like that's some of the ways in which security via abstraction. So it's not necessarily that the design file itself would, or the design process would make things more vulnerable, but it's you know, it's something to take into consideration, I suppose. But yes, onboarding yourself into a project. So this is a slightly different approach. So let's do some writing. In the instance that you want to contribute design to an open source software project that has no public information or like indication that they are like accepting, welcoming, or otherwise like okay to receive design contributions, how do you as a designer go about onboarding yourself? So there's a few different pathways, or there's a few different like aspects to this. There's sort of one, learning about the open source software project from a similar perspective as a like code contributor would. This would require either you as a designer learning or building the same skills that would be needed to, like, at the very least, like for lack of a better term, like install and like use the open source software tool yourself. So there might be no intention to actually like make a code contributions, but you at the very least would need to understand the requirements, like to use the open source software as a like to use the open source software as a user, which is a weird thing to say, but it sort of vastly depends on what the open source software does or like how it functions, because there are so many different kinds of like software, some with a GUI, some without a GUI, some terminal based, all that kind of stuff. The other option is buddying with a person with the above skills, a person / like user, let's just call them that, with the above skills, or someone in the open source software project that has like already installed and like run the open source software, and asking them to like pair with you to show you like how it works, along with like a variety of functionality. Like another option that you can do that I've seen some people have success with is like asking a like open source software user to make a series of screen share videos, so you can see the open source software in action, essentially. So like I guess like the first thing is like knowing what the open source software does, and either knowing that yourself, finding somebody that has that knowledge, or asking somebody to create content documentation that helps you better understand it. So that's like one of the first steps as a designer, to onboard yourself into a project. Hey Diaz, yeah, it's like the morning for you now. It's sleep well. So onboarding, so learning about the project. So like there are circumstances where you can not do this step, or do like lighter weight versions of this step. So it might be that the so option D would be, it may be that some open source software is less complex to like understand and use, or there may be a lot of like public information and use out there, out on the internet for you to learn. So learning about the project is obviously like a good first step. I think it's indeed a good first step for anybody that's contributing code as well. But typically, anybody that's contributing code to open source typically tends to be a user of the open source. So therefore, they have done this step through using it. I don't know how, I'd be curious to know like how common it is for people that contribute code to have not used a particular open source before, like contributing code. In fact, I can't imagine a scenario where somebody that intends to contribute code to an open source software project wouldn't first go through the step of trying to like install, run and use it. That feels like it's kind of like, often this is the thing that we, like when I was doing outreachy intern mentoring, like the first thing that you ask an outreachy intern to do is to like try to run the tool, try to run the open source, and as a part of trying to run the open source installer, make it work, to give feedback on the parts of the process that didn't work, where errors came up, and help like build documentation for different scenarios where errors can happen and things like that, because that's like good learning. But I suppose like this is where the pathway for onboarding yourself into a project kind of diverts from a design perspective and a technical code contribution perspective, because there at some point you will need to have a conversation or like a way of communicating why and how design contributions from like yourself or others can be specifically useful for this open source software project. Like this introduces like a whole heap of complexity to the relationship. Usually like this is where you start to come up against like cultural differences between like people that do code contributions and people that do non-code contributions, because essentially what you're doing is saying this kind of contribution is also important for these reasons, and you may be doing it from a perspective where you cannot or do not want to experience what it's like to do code contributions as well. And I think that should be fine. Like, it shouldn't be a prerequisite for designers to make code contributions. I think some projects think it should. You should be a code contributor of some description, or some projects certainly think you should be able to install and run and use the tool before submitting design. And I think it's useful, but I don't think it should be like a mandatory requirement of like making a design contribution. I don't think that it's necessary, and I think that what it does is it gives very read the manual vibes. It gives very much like, well, if you can't do this, this isn't for you. And I guess that's a decision to make as a project, but that's something I suppose to watch out for as a designer, is if the project makes it clear that they don't want to receive design contributions unless you are able to meet a certain standard, which feels weird to say as part of like open source culture, because like open source culture in and of itself is like a place where people learn how to do better at their thing that they do, code usually. And just because you're not contributing code, like introducing a barrier of saying, well, you actually can't contribute this other thing until you are at a standard, you're never going to get design contributions that way. Or like, and some projects will be like, good, I don't want design contributions. And if they're not willing to make the effort to be like us, then I don't want them to be like themselves. And it just, it gives very like elitist vibes. It gives proprietary vibes, which I think is like often where a lot of projects like start to get like really bristly with me, when I sort of suggest that their attitudes are becoming quite proprietary, when like obviously not the strict definition of proprietary, but it's giving closed vibes when you require a certain skill level to like contribute your skilled expertise, which just isn't necessarily the skilled expertise that has like historically been prioritized. Anyway, it adds a lot of complexity into the relationship, and designers should be prepared for long like periods of time where you are like justifying why you want to contribute design and why and how it'll help the open source project and its users be able to do what the open source software does better. More usable, more whatever the, whatever the objective is, essentially. So like, it's really complicated and it's really frustrating because the first few steps of a design contribution are essentially learn as much as you can about the project, say, like, talk about what you do. So this is another part of this is designers should be like designers, it's not a should, it's a designers will find it easier if they can be specific with what kind of design they want to offer that also matches a discovered like need within the project. Like, so instead of like approaching the project from I'm here to do design contributions, be more specific with what kinds of design contributions. I've noticed that your graphics could do with improvement because the symbology can mean these things or these things. I'd like to work on that. That could be like, that's the like a better definition. That could even like that could even end up being like an issue, a descriptive issue. Be like prepared to like write issues, bugs, UI improvements, like any design content, but off the issue queue at first. Being prepared with a like timeline and process will help, but isn't, it isn't gonna like harm your like pitch to contribute if you develop this in like conversations. Like many open source software projects will find like having a design process, like a feedback process, a little too like involved. Like design processes from like industry tend to match like poorly to like open source software cultural processes. Be able and willing to adapt, make like make concessions, and also learn about open source software like processes. You can or like learn / observe open source software processes, because every project is going to be slightly different. So essentially, like the first few steps are learning, having conversations, which is different to like a developer process, right? From what we learned in the Coursera course. The first thing after learning about the open source and running it, installing it and running it and using it is submit bugs, essentially. Submit tests, do testing, do bug reporting, do like the small stuff to build reputation. So I guess you could say it's similar with design. Like the thing that's different is that you have to talk about what you do more actively, because it's not necessarily a typical thing that's been experienced in open source projects. So you have to kind of announce what you're doing, or what, not announce, you have to talk about what you intend to do in an appropriate space. So like, obviously, if there's no appropriate space to have that conversation, then you're going to have to find somewhere that feels appropriate. So if no like comms space exists already, then finding an appropriate one for your needs is like useful. So if like there's no chat channel, you could like, if you use like social media, you could like talk about what design you want to do for an open source software project using like a hashtag project name. You could, or make like a YouTube video. The YouTube videos can kind of come off as a little bit teardowny, which, you know, you'd have to be very careful with, like how you're doing your wording, or like very careful. You just have to be polite, be polite and be respectful. And I don't think that, I think there are some spaces where teardowns are like useful, but most of the time I don't think teardowns are that useful. I think they kind of come off as unpleasant, most to me anyway. So lots of conversation. Then I suppose like we'll finish the stream by like suggesting to start off with some sort of good first design issues. And we'll kind of talk about that more next time, because like, how do you know what a good first design issue is? So what I've tended to find when people contribute to open source software projects, or designers contribute to open source software projects, like often they'll be like, okay, here's a specific kind of design I want to contribute: user research, user testing processes, UI, graphics. And then it will just basically be like somebody decide for me what I should work on. Like somebody with some like level of maintainer power in this project, tell me what the most important thing to work on is. And you might find that happens. You might find that even projects can agree on what the most important thing is, if they don't like have like public documentation of like possibly a roadmap or something like that, because not a lot of projects kind of announce the things that they want to happen before they start happening, because simply a lot of open source projects don't have the resources, time to do that kind of process. But one of the things that I've seen happen when you sort of ask the open source software project, hey, what design do you need or want, is like with the open source software jobs board, because you're asking somebody that doesn't know about design subject matter to try and describe and define what they need. They're going to do the best that they can with the information that they have. And sometimes they'll describe something that is a lot more work than they maybe anticipated, that isn't a small thing to start with, that proves why design is useful, and how it can improve things. And they'll sort of start off with like a really big like task that doesn't seem like a big task for a designer ahead of time. And then it sort of becomes more like, it starts off exciting because it's, somebody's going to completely redo our like UI design system, amazing. And then the sort of reality sinks in of how much time and energy and effort it takes to do a big design task, when like the first things that you could have done as like good first design issues are incredibly like scoped incredibly specifically, very small, are as like, this is a slight sort of trying to get like the design education stuff in there as well, that have an angle of helping people be part of the design process and understand what you do more. because I think as designers coming into open source like have a kind of default dual responsibility of producing the design contribution, but also justifying why the design contribution is going to help, and also kind of building that proficiency in design, why design is good for software, open source or otherwise. So yeah, it's kind of like a well-scoped, small, proves designs like benefits that involves a lot of people, as many people as possible, like within reason, is like a good first design issue. There are like examples of what like that tangibly is, but often it's going to be like a process of trying to find out what that small thing is, between the designer and the project. So that's like getting into the onboarding. But basically, like this onboarding also assumes that you have a project. It assumes you know a project that you want to contribute to. This hasn't gone into the step before step one, which is, how do you find a project that you want to work on? Well, I did some workshops with design. I did one workshop with designers once, about like very like, I know nothing about open source. How do I even find a project to work on? And then how do I even start? So it's kind of like an onboarding workshop. And like one of the main like processes that one of the main like the ways that I sort of informed designers on how to look for projects is use the search function in places like GitHub and GitLab. Know what you're kind of looking for. Know like your criteria for being involved. And I think this kind of goes back to the designer diary studies and some of the sort of other research work that I've done over the last couple of years, which is like typically the things that you want to look for. So let's say knowing what open source software you want to contribute to. What are your criteria for contribution? Like E.G. Open source software must have a maintainer. Open source software must have been updated in the last year. Open source software must have a license. Open source software must have a communications method, like beyond issue queues. Open source software must have a positive attitude towards design. Open source software project must have an idea of what they want to achieve in the future with the open source software. It doesn't have to be complicated. It could just be a list of things that they want. So that's like the step zero. Step zero is your criteria for contribution. So these are all the things that you want to think about before like you even begin to even before you even begin to like do the process of like contribution. So there's like a step beforehand. And then you've got do your search. So like step 0.1, do your search. Like look for a project. Use search functions. Ask other people in open source software spaces. Like a lot of people in open source software spaces are very social and will tell you like, oh, I work on a project, we'd like this. So yeah, there's sort of like a bit of a beginning to like onboarding designers into an open source software project. So hey, look, we did almost 3 pages of sort of writing. That's pretty decent. Well, we'll see how much further we'll get on the onboarding thing next time, and also maybe we'll revisit the curriculum as well. Who knows? But until next stream, we'll call it here for our stream time at 10 minutes over the allocated time that we're supposed to finish. Thanks, folks who joined, and thanks to anybody who watches the recording on YouTube or Twitch or otherwise. I hope that this has been useful and informative for anybody interested in